Well, there we go. We did it again. Well, good day, and welcome to another episode of Lanark County Confidential, brought to you on the WRVO Radio Network, a division of Reno Viola Outdoors. I'm your host, Michael Lynch Staunton. This is episode 10. This one is entitled Buying a Used Boat, or Used Boats, whatever. For some people, this is quite the task. I've seen for others, it's not. It's like a lot of things in life. There's a process to it. If you do it right, you end up being happy. If you don't, you can be really unhappy. I've seen, being a marine mechanic, a boat mechanic for some 20-odd years now, I've seen a lot of guys, I've seen a lot of unhappy wives, because their husband went out thinking that they were going to get a good deal, and they didn't. And so hopefully I'm going to give you some tips today how to alleviate that. Maybe you should get the wives to listen rather than the guys to listen. So anyways, where do you start off? Well, basically you figure out how much money you can afford. And then add another $2,000 or $3,000 on top of that. No, but seriously, make sure you have a budget. Try not to go over that budget. If you're looking for a specific boat, a specific year, do a lot of homework. The internet's a very easy place to get a lot of information, but it's also an easy place to get a lot of bad information as well too. I've seen a lot of real crap out there as far as guys giving advice, especially on some of these fishing boards. Some of the stuff I hear is just, I want to get on, but I know I'm going to make enemies, so I don't even bother. I used to get on and challenge some of these guys, but you know, there's these cliques around here, no, I shouldn't say around here. I don't want to be specific, but there's these cliques that develop, and you annoy one guy, you annoy 20 guys. So I've learned in the last few years just to not bother with some of it. It's, you know, to me, it's kind of silly myself because, you know, all you're doing is trying to help them out. But these guys, I don't know, comes down to this male thing. But anyways, what I've learned is to look for, don't look at innuendo, look for specifics. You can find out whether there's been recalls on motors. You can find out whether there's been campaigns on motors. There's a lot of stuff that you can find out about motors these days that you couldn't 20 years ago. Basically, 20 years ago, all we did on a used motor was we did a compression check on it, vacuum and pressure check the gear case, and that was it. That was pretty much it, and you cross your fingers. And I got to say, in my years of doing that, there's only one motor that ever caught me out. And what had happened is the guy changed his gear oil prior to bringing it in. It was clean. I didn't know it. Pressure check and vacuum checked it fine, but within 10 hours, the guy had lost a drive shaft and stuff like that. So it's used, guys. There's no safety. It's buyer beware. This is the big world of caveat emptor. This is when you gotta put your big pants on and realize that the decision you make with your $10, $12, even your $5,000, if that's what your budget can only afford, you better make damn sure that this isn't done on the emotional fact that I like the way it looks, or I've always wanted to have one of those boats. or I've always wanted to own a Ranger, or I've always wanted to own a Legend, or I've always wanted to own a Tracker, or I've always wanted to own a Lund. You know what I mean? You got to get that out of your mind. I see guys buy, especially brand new boats as well too. You know, this is the only industry where I see people putting down $40,000-$50,000 and they've never ever driven that boat. Their friend had it, they've driven in it. They've never driven it. Their buddy never let them drive it. They've driven in it. So, but they've never driven the boat. I've seen guys go from 9.9, 15 tillers to 70 horsepower to 200 horsepower. And when they got into 200 horsepower, they didn't know what the hell they were doing. So much so that they almost injured themselves. You know, so there's a lot of stuff to be aware of. So one of the things I suggest is pay a mechanic. That $100 or whatever that's what I basically charge is $100. And I, depending on what it is, if it's an IO, it's a bit more, but on an outboard, now it's 150 because I do it's a 2-hour check now because I pull the prop shaft housing out of the gear case. And the reason I do that, and I'm probably one of the only guys that does this, and the reason I do that is to be able to inspect the pinion gear. These days, whenever I see especially a bass boat or any boat out there with a stainless prop on it, and I see nicks and dings and scratches and anything like that in the stainless prop, if it's a Merc gear case, I worry. If it's a Bombardier gear case, well, they're a bit better. If it's a Bombardier Lightning gear case, I worry. So there are specific models I worry about. Hondas, they're kind of soft. Yamahas, they're kind of soft as well too. So, each Suzuki's not a bad gear case. It's the housings I worry about on some of these because the housings are very, they could be a bit more robust. But okay, say you're looking at a motor. The first thing you got to make sure of is that it has a compression check. On these motors, on the EFI motors, the DFI motors, and the 4-stroke fuel injection motors, there's information you can get off the fuel injection modules. They're computers, they're brains that you should be able to download. It's hours running, its RPM profile, and stuff like that. That's just a given right off the bat. So if it's a direct injection engine, if it's an EFI engine, or if it's a 4-stroke EFI, that's one of the things you should be asking for first and foremost. If it's just a normal carbureted engine, ask the guy for his bills, for his winterizing bills, for his service bills and stuff like that. If you can't produce it, you can pretty much figure out how the boat was taken care of. There are some guys out there that I had them winterize it in the fall time and summarize it in the springtime, and those were the best engines. Those are the ones that we took back on trade all the time because you knew that it was well taken care of. If you say to him, when was the last time you changed your water pump impeller, and he goes, there's something else, like to me it's 150 hours every 3 years tops. That's it. When was the last time you changed the plugs? If it's a 4-stroke, every 3 years. If it's a 2-stroke, every year. If it's a direct injection, well, that just goes to, you got to inspect it. You got to check the plugs at that point. So there's like I say, it's for myself, I have a process that I go through. I have a checklist that I go through. Some of the neglected items on the engines are going to be filters. So those are the things that you want to look at. When was the last time you changed a fuel filter? I've seen motors out there, they've had the same fuel filter in it for 15 years. But the guy says, I take care of my engine well. I can't debate with the guy, it's just ridiculous. So you let them think what they think. When they say, what's the motor worth? You tell them and they go, honestly, I said, well, look at it. What can I say? So, and that's what happens. All of this goes to the resale value of the motor. I had one guy call me up, says, I'm looking at this Princecraft. It's a year old. It's this and this and that. This is what the guy paid for it. This is what he wants for it. I have a guide that I use. I use NADA. It's a website. It's called, I forget what it's, but that's the initials, NADA. And you go to it and you punch in the numbers for the boat and the motor and stuff like that. And it comes with, it's pretty good ballpark figure of what you can expect to pay for it. So I came back with the guy. I said, well, it's about $5,000 off what I think you should pay for it. So he went back and forth with the guy. He eventually didn't buy it off the guy because he came back. He says, it's the same thing. I thought about it too. And he said it was a bit high as far as this price-wise goes. So, it's sometimes on some of these deals, you just got to pass them up because they're not a deal. Another, for instance, with the way the dollar is these days, I'll give you 2 instances of buying out of the States, okay? One guy was lucky because he bought the boat with the warranty. It was we bought a Bass Cat, and I'm not trying to knock Evinrude or anything like that, but Bombardier did a real foolish. They didn't do a foolish maneuver, but I think some of the manufacturers did a foolish maneuver. Is they took a gear case that should have been on a lighter boat and put it on a bass boat application. They took the Bombardier L2 gear case, the Lightning gear case, and they put it on a heavy bass boat and put a 4-blade prop on it. And I think that was just the worst thing you could have done. To me, that would go on, a 19-foot boat, a real light 900-pound boat. And you could spin a big chopper or something like that. The gear case just wasn't robust enough. They were trying to get speed out of it, and it wasn't the idea. It just proved wrong. I mean, and this comes down to the engineers can engineer the engine as good as they can, but the marketing guys get in there and they really screw things up sometimes, and that I think is one of the biggest screw ups that they did. So much so that you have a whole bunch of engines that lose their value because people are afraid of them. There's nothing wrong with the engine. I've got a Ficht, I've got a 2000 Ficht 200 on the back of my boat, my Gambler, and it was deemed a lemon motor back in 2000. I've got 600 hours on it, and it's still running strong. I keep saying, I'm going to do a compression check or pull the heads off. Well, I do a compression check every year, but I keep saying I'm going to pull the heads off just to check the bore, and I still haven't done that 4 years down. I was going to rebuild it 2 years ago, and I said, no. It's still running strong. Actually, it's running stronger than ever. But it was considered a lemon motor. It was considered a motor that it was going to blow up. When I bought it off the dealer, who I used to work for this guy, they said, oh, well, we put it on this guy's boat. It blew up within 20 minutes. We put the other one on. It blew up within 2 hours. So we're not sure what's going to happen. Well, I don't know. I put it on the back of mine, and I maintain it properly, and I put 600 hours on it. So I got to say, if you, and I discussed this with a Bombardier rep as well, too, and we basically came down with the same, answer. It's not the technology. If the technology was bad, these guys would be sued out of existence. It's not the technology. Direct injection works. It's in your cars today. Okay, Bombardier's injection system works. It's in motorcycles. It's in outboards. It's in other things that you're going to see as well too. Do you think the Navy SEALs go on a? They have a specific motor for the Navy SEALs. That's the same. Anyways, so the technology works. What doesn't work are the technicians that don't understand how to diagnose the problems. And I know that because I get a lot of issues from guys who have gone to 3 or 4 different dealers with the same problem. There's a couple of guys out there, they won't admit it, but they got their problems fixed because they ended up consulting me on a regular basis. Why they just don't come out and admit it, I don't know, but anyways, that's their problem, not mine. So but what I want to say is about, these 2 instances of buying boats out of the States. 2 1/4 HOs, I believe one was. I think they were both 2 1/4 HOs with the L2 gear case. One was a Bass Cat, one was on a Ranger. I knew there was an issue with the gear cases. Guy brings me the one boat because we were blueprinting props, and he wanted to see the difference between a blueprinted prop and a non-blueprinted prop. And we did this with 2 Merc props. This is a very interesting head-to-head comparison. Both props out of the box, brand new. One was sent away to my prop guy, Kawartha Props, to have it blueprinted. The other one was just the stock prop that he'd been running, and in turns and stuff like that, the boat would fall off a plane. And what was the other complaint? It was slow to get up on. It was slow to get up on plane. It wouldn't in a tight turn. It wouldn't hold it would come off plane, and speed was down a bit. Anyways, with the blueprinted prop, came out of the hole way better. I mean, I could just hold it with the throttle and throttle it up and back. It held the bow really nice. Corner, no problem. Held the bow up all the time. And what happened was we dropped a couple of hundred RPM, but still maintained the speed. So it just told me that prop was working way, way better. Anyways, this guy is one of these do-it-yourselfers, thinks he knows what he's doing. He keeps continuing changing his gear oil. Doesn't realize that the metal that he's seeing on his plug is not normal. So, first year of ownership, no problem. You know, he actually a buddy of his. I know what I'm talking about. I've owned a bunch of boats and yada yada. These guys, I've owned a bunch of boats and I know what I'm talking. Yeah, okay. I love those guys. I make lots of money off of those guys too. Well, actually, I make money off their buddies because they're the ones that give the bad advice. So, anyways, these guys go down in the States. They pick this boat up, do their own inspection on it, whatever. Oh yeah, it's a good boat. It's a good boat. Good motor. Anyways, bring it back up. Him and I do the prop thing the following summer. I don't see him for about a month or so. And he calls me up. I got a problem. Made a whole bunch of noise. It's not going anywhere now. I think I blew the power head up. So I said, bring it by. Now, sometimes you got to not listen to the customer, what they say. He's telling me it made a whole bunch of noise up top. Think he blew the power head. He's got a warranty on it, so we got to get a hold of the warranty company and stuff like that. Anyhow, I go to pull the power head. I go to pull the power head off. I do a compression check on it, and I find one cylinder is down, and so I go to pull the power head off, and I thought to myself, that's the L2 gear case. I've heard so much about these things. I said, you know what? I'm just going to drop the gear oil and see what happens. Well, as soon as I pulled the plug out, as soon as I pulled the drain screw out, I knew what had happened. There was so much debris on it. I didn't even have to look at the gear oil, but the gear oil was all silver, so I knew what was happening. So anyways, we dropped the gear case, or I pulled the gear case off hard. It's spent. It's grenaded, okay, because of it could have been saved. It could have been just opinion and this and that, but because he ran it, because if this happens at 5,000 RPM, it doesn't take long for that gear case to become shrapnel. All the bearings are toast. The pinion bearing spins in the case is junk, and you just basically wrecked a gear case that you could have saved because you just didn't know when you were looking at the drain screw that amount of crap on the magnet, that's not normal. Or your buddy doesn't know that as well too because he's owned a few outboards and done it all himself. So I love these guys because these are the guys that bring me the IOs with the cracked blocks, and they say, oh yeah, well it was too expensive to get it done by the shop, so we did it ourselves. Yeah, okay. So guess what? That $300 the shop was going to charge you is now $5,000 for a new block. So, it's like that Fram commercial. Pay me now, pay me later. So anyways, this guy, not only was the gear case done, but the power head needed to be rebuilt as well too, because these guys didn't realize that it had scored cylinders, and they couldn't see that on their compression check. So there you go. That's one of the indications. He's just lucky that he had the warranty. That's what he was lucky about. But anyways, he still lost money off of it because the warranty doesn't cover the cost of a new. The warranty covers the motor at that point of time, which is worth maybe $7,000. The new motor is worth $2,250 these days is worth $18,000-$20,000. So. There's a big difference at that point. Second case, so like I say, was the Ranger. Again, the L2 gear case. I told the guy, I said, listen, and he's, the boat's been done by the same dealer every year. They do all the winterizing, all the maintenance, all this and all that on it, no problem. So, okay. I said, well, if that's the case, they won't mind pulling the prop shaft housing out. It's only, like I say, I charge an hour to do it, plus the gear oil. Yeah, and you're changing the gear oil anyway, so why not do it? So anyways, I don't hear, I try and instruct these guys to do that. Whatever. So the guy buys it. He says, well, they wouldn't do it. Will you do it? So I said, okay, fine. I pull it out, pull the housing out. And with him here, I show exactly where the damage to the pinion is. I give him an estimate of, maybe so many hours that it's going to last. And, say good day. So luckily he made it through the last season. He was smart enough to go find himself another gear case in the event that it blew up. And here's the thing. He says, should I go buy the same gear case? I said, no. I said, buy the the CLE gear case, or don't buy that gear case, because it doesn't have enough area for a good pinion in your application. They have an M gear case, which I have on mine, which is, it's good to 80 miles an hour. It's fine. That's all you need. You don't need this fancy low water pickup, yada, yada, yada bullshit. So that's all marketing. I mean, us fishermen will buy anything if it looks good and it's shiny and we think it'll catch fish. So that's why there's so many Rangers out there. I'll get a few calls from Ranger boys. Yeah, the Ranger guys will be freaking calling me on that one. So, anyways, where was I? So, not only that, but he comes to me. This Ranger one again comes later on that season, and he's got no trim and tilt, and it ends up that the whole trim and tilt unit is loose. All the bolts are loose. There's water in it. So at that point, basically I band-aided it for him so he could get through the weekend, and then we're gonna deal with the issue at a later time. So, but there you go. That's just two examples of guys that thought they were going to get good deals, and they to themselves they got a good deal, but afterwards they still had to put money out because it wasn't such a great deal. So my biggest concern, especially if you see a gear case and it's got some nicks in it, it's got a prop shaft, or it's got a prop on it that has damage to it, especially if it's a stainless prop, especially if it's a Merc gear case and it's a stainless prop. I wouldn't buy it unless the guy's willing to have that gear case inspected internally. And I mean by you pull the prop shaft housing out, you pull the reverse gear out, and you inspect the pinion gear, each little tooth, and make sure there's no nicks or marks or anything like that on it. Because typically what happens here is you got stainless steel prop and you whack a rock. The impact from that is transmitted right straight through the prop into the forward gear, into the pinion gear, and that marks the pinion gear slightly. That mark on that pinion gear damages the integrity of the hardening, and that over a period of time, depending on the usage and how much gear and how good the gear oil is. I use Merck's top of the line gear oil. That is going to tell me how long that gear case is going to last. Reason being is because once the integrity of the hardening has been damaged or compromised, that's when the damage is going to occur, and that's when it's going to continue, and it won't stop. I mean, it's just, and I've seen gear cases at that point, and then I've known the customer until boom, they blew up, and so I can, pretty much give an indication of how long it's going to last before it does eventually fail. But it will fail. So it's not a matter of a good deal anymore, because that in another year and a half, I got to put a gear case on it, and that gear case is $3,000 or $5,000. So, you can figure out that, geez, if this thing was, I think I'm getting a great deal on it, and I got to put $5,000 into it in a couple of years, it's not that great a deal. So, that $150 you spend with the mechanic prior to that can save you that nightmare or that rude awakening later on down the line. And I see this constantly. I have one customer, very intelligent guy, obviously. He's a financial guy, so he's very, yeah. Well, he's in a smart job. He was smart to get that job. But anyways, we won't go into that. But he bought, when I was at another major dealer, he bought a boat off of them. And it was his buddy's boat, and it wasn't that great a deal. He bought it because of the name and, the fact that it was, a Boston whaler and this and they had a good name and this and that and yada, yada, yada. But it wasn't that great a deal. So what ended up happening was we traded it into another company, and he paid me basically to help him find another boat. He's had that boat going on 8 years now. Couldn't be happier with it. Does everything that he wanted to do. Meets all of his expectations. Service-wise, we've had one issue with it that I went because he's a customer. Well, he's a member of my. He's got a membership to my service. I dealt with the issue at his cottage prior to the long weekend and kept him going for the long weekend. He had company coming up, so kept him going for the long weekend and then dealt with it later on. So he's been more than happy. And yeah, I mean, I charged him $500, but sometimes that's what it takes in order to get what you want. You need somebody to help you weed through the BS that can be out there, because some of these guys, they'll tell you anything. They really, really will. I'm not saying that, but human nature is human nature. If I'm trying to sell my boat because I want to buy another boat, or because I need the money or whatever, people are motivated for whatever reasons, and the less integrity they have, then, the more stories I think they're going to make up. So when you're buying a boat, if the guy says a bunch of things to me that just doesn't make any sense, I know. Just the way when customers come in here and say, well, this is what happened when this happened. And I look at it and I go, well, there's no way that could happen, but, whatever, you want to believe that, go ahead. So it's just, when you're putting that amount of money out, you should maybe think about budgeting in, a couple of $100 to have it inspected. You can't buy a car without a safety. And the reason they did that was because too many people were getting killed in the cars because they weren't safe. To me, I don't understand why they don't have safeties for boats. It makes no sense. I always used to say this to customers. I said, you break down in a car, you step out of your car, you're on the sidewalk, you're on the road, you pull your cell phone out, and you call the tow truck, and they come and pick you up. You're in the middle of 30-mile lake, it's the beginning of May, and your boat dies halfway back to the cottage or whatever, and it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and you're drifting out there by yourself. I'm sure the cell coverage is better these days, but way back then there was bad cell coverage up there, so it made a lot more sense. So, but I just look at it like, you never know. I pulled guys off the Ottawa River and Shirley's Bay where their motor wasn't starting. I was watching them drift down towards the rapids, and I couldn't let them. I watched them drift a quarter of a mile. Finally, I just went over and said, give me a rope. And the guy pulls this 2-foot rope off the bow of his boat, and I'm going, oh boy, here's a tow rope, and you probably don't have any life jackets as well too. So, it just comes down to the better you prepare yourself for this task of buying a used boat, the better the thing is going to be. And if it takes getting a professional to do it, then by all means get a professional to do it, because you're gonna be a lot happier. Your wife's going to be a lot happier. Your kids are going to be a lot happier. It just makes more sense to me to do that. So some of the things I look for, like I say, service bills. You're going to need a compression check. You're going to need the gear case inspected, hydraulics inspected, steering inspected. You need an inspection. You need the trailer inspected as well, too. Trailers are one of the most neglected parts of it. I've seen guys bring it in there and a boat looks great, but, he needs $200 worth of trailer stuff. So those are the things. But like I say, the best thing you can do is go out and get a professional to come with you, or tell the guy, I want to do an inspection first on it, or, if they'll let you do that type thing. So, but anyhow, that's about all I can say. It's buyer beware, like I say, and if you're prepared for it, then you'll be a lot happier. That's about it for this week. Thanks for listening. Hope this helps you out when you are buying a boat. If you need any more help, send me an email, info@mlsser.ca or info@lanarkcountyconfidential.com. Once again, we're being broadcast on WRVO Radio Network, a division of Reno Viola Outdoors. I'm your host, Mike Lynch Staunton, thanking you once again for listening, and we'll see you all next week.